welcome everybody to the Lit Circle. Reporting live, I am Gavin McCune, and I am so excited to kick off this book club review of ours in our latest season. Our group name tends to be a bit of a pun because we think that analyzing middle school literature should always be a party. So that's what we're doing today. There's no ticket necessary for this session. We believe a deep dive into stories should be high energy and accessible to everyone. For this project, I am stepping into the role of your primary reporter and responder. My fellow hosts have each led their own incredible sessions, and hopefully you'll be hearing those today. But right now, I'm here to share my own unique perspective on how our dialogue really brought these stories to life. And hopefully, throughout this video and presentation, you'll see how we move beyond just reading the text to actually constructing knowledge together as a team. So let's get this party started. I'm ready, so I hope you are. So without further ado, let's meet our hosts today. Let me introduce the VIP guest list for this Lit Circle. Every great party needs a team to keep the energy up, and we have a pretty cool group function going on. We each took the lead on a different literary refreshment. So first up, you have me, your host and reporter for the night. We also have Elena, who tends to be our empathy expert within this. We have Julia, who's our specialist in digital ethics, and then we have Bailey, who is our lead analyst for systematic power and control. We each hosted our own specific book, and this entire presentation is a reflection on how we supported each other, encouraged new ideas, and solved challenges together. These are the voices you'll hear me quoting throughout the night as we recap how our dialogue turned these stories into a true collaborative experience. Also, before we dive into these refreshments, I do have a quick message for my fellow hosts. I want to thank Elena, Julia, and Bailey for making this book club an incredible experience, and I think you truly brought the lit part to our circle through your constant support and your energy, so I just wanted to quickly give you guys a shout out and thank you before I begin. Hey, I know why you guys are here. You guys want to see what we have as refreshments, so let's take a deep dive. Let's see what we have here today. First of all, we have Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Party Pooper, hosted by me. We have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which is a Hunger Games novel. We have Confessions from the Group Chat, shared by Julia. And then we have A Dog's Purpose, which was shared to us by Elena. As I'm reporting live from the front lines of middle school drama, we're diving into our first refreshment, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Party Pooper. And as the host for this book specifically, I pretty much wanted to focus on the performative reality that really just defines Greg's world. Through this, we discussed how both kids and adults in the story are constantly performing for an audience, which unfortunately leads to public shaming when things really don't go as planned. I also highlighted the social currency trap. Greg feels this intense mounting pressure to achieve viral blowout party and collect rare items like the three-eyed Thievul just to feel happy. I have that included right here. But the real hard truth of the story comes out when Greg's family actually forgets his birthday, and this acts as a painful catalyst. It forces Greg to shift his perspective on his parents and really himself. And I would understand that. I would be really upset if my parents forgot my party. As we move into our live reporting session, I really want to say this Lit Circle really brought the heat to our discussion on this one, especially when we were talking about Greg's growth. We just talked about whether or not Greg actually evolved as a character. We notice he frequently avoids responsibility and he really shifts the blame for his own mistakes. He likes to blame everybody else but himself. Bailey added some great insight. Shout out to Bailey. She pointed out that the social pressure that Greg feels to quote unquote look cool is really just a perfect mirror for real life middle schoolers. She said that kids today often feel they must exaggerate their stories just to impress their peers and find happiness, which doesn't always lead to happiness. And throughout this, it encouraged me to respond by creating a really cool artifact. I designed it as a practical tool for the classroom to teach students about the importance of loyalty and staying true to yourself, rather than just getting lost in the drama. And I can tell you firsthand, I experienced stuff like that in middle school, and I've seen other people experience it. It's not an original experience, I can tell you that much. When we were stuck on the topic of peer pressure, it's when I came in and introduced my survival guide for middle school parties artifact that I created. It just gave our group a quick glimpse of how we can teach integrity. And hopefully this can be like a good handbook of rules that can help students survive the social minefields of middle school events. I talked about focusing on loyalty, what to do and what not to do, and how to be a real friend. I included a warning that trying too hard to be cool or doing things to just impress others can backfire and create more drama. And I tried to remind students that they can't just gossip or talk behind others' backs because it only hurts people and hurts friendships. And really, I wanted to talk about staying true to yourself and how the core lesson is that loyalty builds trust. Loyalty is everything. It's better to stay true to your friends than to abandon them just to look cool. Now we're moving into a much heavier refreshment provided to you by our very own Bailey Patton. Sunrise on the Reaping, which is a branch of the Hunger Games. Bailey led us through the Capitol's gauntlet where we follow a young Haymitch Abernathy forced into a survival competition but on brutal strategy and impossible choices. We analyzed how Panem uses the games as a tool of systematic fear just to keep the districts from ever dreaming of rebellion. And a major point of our discussion was just the dehumanization of the tributes. In the eyes of the Capitol, these kids aren't people. They're just pure entertainment and ranked like objects for an audience to consume. I must say, dude, our dialogue really heated up when we discussed the internal transformation of the characters. Bailey highlighted the moment that Haymitch carries Lavella's body to President Snow as a powerful, powerful act of open resistance. And Julia agreed. She responded, saying that it's precisely where Haymitch loses his innocence and realizes he must play the game just to survive. I think Bailey brought up a really good question as well that really kept us moving. One of her discussion questions was, how does Haymitch's feelings for Maisley change? We discussed this and how he shifted from annoyance to respect, which shows that the human heart is still beating even in the middle of these games. Before we move on with this lit party, I just wanted to show you the very cool artifact that Bailey made. It's called the Road of Power and Control. And she used this visual map to track the Capitol's methods of dominance, and she was illustrating the progression of the initial reaping to the final acts of resistance. So I just thought this was very cool and I wanted to show everybody. Hey, now we get to dive into this digital drama of Confessions from the Group Chat, which was provided to us by Julia. And this is a pretty messy segment of the reality of middle school life in this lovely internet age that we are currently living in. We're switching up the vibe to look at the social fallout of Virginia Vaughn. Julia led us through the total isolation that Virginia faces after her mean messages are leaked to her friends. We explored this performative persona, and we discussed how girls often present a completely different versions of themselves online rather than what they do in real life. And our group realized that it's incredibly complicated to decide who is right and who is wrong when you're on social media and it's distorting the truth. And it also fuels the drama. Really, it's a high stakes game where digital identity and the leaked truth collide. I gotta admit, Julia really pushed our thinking during this reporting session. She pointed out that this novel isn't just a simple story about bullying. It's about bullying, but it's also just the massive challenge of staying true to yourself while navigating crushes and all the pressure you have on social media. And when we were talking during this, it really helped us realize that digital communication really lacks clarity, and it can lead to emotionally charged assumptions that turn tiny issues into big major blowouts. And Julia created a pretty cool artifact that helps us see how quickly a chat turns toxic when people use vague language instead of talking things out. And I'll show you guys that artifact here in a minute. And this artifact as well, I would love to use in my future classroom because it's an excellent way to help students visualize the long term consequences of their digital footprint. We use this artifact to see how quickly a group chat can turn toxic when members use just vague language instead of talking things out. And seeing messages laid out like this, which could be like a real conversation, it's a perfect way to help students visualize the permanent consequences of their digital footprint. We could identify exactly where communication lacked clarity and where it led to emotionally charged assumptions that caused major blowouts. Social media can be pretty toxic. All right, guys, let's wrap up our book tour with the final refreshment. We have A Dog's Purpose made by our very own Elena. This really shifted the vibe of the party. It gave us a look at the world with some very, very different eyes. We followed this dog through several different lives as he tried to figure out his true purpose and what life was actually all about. Obviously, this is a deep dive into that unconditional bond between humans and their dogs, and it stays strong even across lifetimes. Seeing things from a dog's point of view really helps you appreciate how much of an impact simple kindness and just being there for someone can have. We had some pretty cool takes on this. Elena pointed out that this book shows true strength isn't about being the biggest or the toughest. You have to have kindness. You have to step up as a leader, be a leader, not a follower. I also wanted to mention that I love the line because failure isn't an option if success is just a matter of more effort. We got into a great discussion about how the dog sees both the absolute best and worst parts of people, which really made us look at the duality of human nature. And also, at the end of the day, we all agreed that the dog's journey is really a story of self discovery. It proves that everyone has their own unique strengths to share with the world. Elena created this cool activity. It was pretty cool. To get into this dog's mindset, we checked out this cool activity she made called Defining Purpose. We looked at a visual that connected big ideas like instinct and courage and belonging to help us understand how the dog navigates his many lives. All right, guys. It's time to head to the mixing table for our final party wrap up. This is kind of where we synthesized all of our main themes. We noticed both Greg from Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Virginia from Confessions from the Group Chat. They both struggle with identity and performance. They both perform for an audience instead of being their authentic selves. And whether it's the capital systematic control and Sunrise on the Reaping, or a middle school social hierarchy, we really saw that a characters always have to choose between their status and their humanity. And we also explored the duality of man, from animals witnessing human cruelty to friends leaking group chats. We really dug into the hard truths of how people treat each other.
Aww.
Well, guys, unfortunately, the party's over for now. But these insights are definitely staying with me, and I hope they stay with you as well. So thanks for joining us at the Lit Circle. Working with this crew showed me that collaboration and dialogue are the best ways to construct knowledge, and I cannot wait to bring this same lit energy into my own future classroom. So thank you all, and have a great day. Go Bobcats.